On September the 18th, which is Mexican Independence Day weekend, Canelo Alvarez will be back in the ring. And he wants to let Oscar De La Hoya know, you said you was going to take my date from me. You could never do that. You never had the respect of my country. I fight for my country. But before we get into this next video, make sure that you hit my like button. It don't cost you a thing. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already a sub to the channel. So Oscar De La Hoya has been talking a lot of stuff about Canelo Alvarez ever since Canelo Alvarez left Oscar De La Hoya in Golden Boy Promotions. Now, Oscar De La Hoya has been talking a lot because he's returning to the sport, and Oscar De La Hoya is saying that he's going to eventually challenge Canelo Alvarez, which, you know, everybody that really knows boxing knows that this is a joke. Anyway, Oscar De La Hoya, he's also talked about that when he comes back in September, he was going to take Canelo Alvarez's September date and show Canelo Alvarez that the fans, the Mexican fans, want to see him, that he still has the superstardom that he did before he left the sport. We know that Canelo is now fighting on September the 18th. That is the weekend of Mexican Independence Day. And Oscar De La Hoya is going to be fighting that weekend before Canelo Alvarez on 9/11. And we all know what 9/11 is. Now, Oscar De La Hoya, right? With that September the 11th date, Canelo Alvarez fighting on September the 18th, the weekend of Mexican independence, is showing and is letting everybody know that Oscar De La Hoya, you don't hold weight like you think you do. You have nothing on Canelo Alvarez. All the shit that you talk about Canelo Alvarez, all the bitterness that you've shown since Canelo Alvarez has left you, you still don't have the respect of the Mexican fan base like Canelo Alvarez does. And also, for everybody that may have forgot, the younger generation, Canelo Alvarez wants to let everybody know that Oscar De La Hoya, he always lived in the shadows of Julio Cesar Chavez. You never had the respect from the Mexican fan base. The only time the Mexican fan base ever really got behind Oscar De La Hoya and stood 10 toes down with Oscar De La Hoya is when Oscar De La Hoya fought Hector Camacho Macho. And that was only because the Mexicans and the Puerto Ricans have always had a big rivalry when it's a Mexican fighter and a Puerto Rican fighter. So, of course, the Mexican fan base was going to stand by the Mexican American because they've always let it be known that Oscar De La Hoya is a Mexican American. Oscar De La Hoya always did and tried everything he could to try to get the Mexican fan base behind him, but they wasn't rocking with Oscar De La Hoya like that. They was rocking with Julio Cesar Chavez. And the Mexican fan base, they felt some type of way when Oscar De La Hoya beat Julio Cesar Chavez 2 times, right? They didn't like that because they never rolled with Oscar De La Hoya. They looked at Oscar De La Hoya as a sellout. They looked at him as the, American sellout, that he was trying to appease to the white people. That's just how they looked at it back in the day. They never gave him the respect that he wanted from the Mexican fan base. So he could never fight for his country, which Mexico is not even his country, but he could never fight for the people that he tried to show everybody now is his people. They never stuck with him like that, Of course, they also stuck with him when he went against Tito Trinidad. Trinidad was a Puerto Rican, and like I said, the Puerto Rican and the Mexican fan base, they always had that big rivalry. So of course they were gonna ride with Oscar De La Hoya. So they never showed him respect like that. Only when he went up against another black fighter or a Puerto Rican fighter, right? But when he went up against big Mexican names like Julio Cesar Chavez, they're riding with Chavez. And Oscar De La Hoya hated that, and he always felt some type of way about that, right? He always did everything he could to gain the respect. Now you're going against, in the media, you're going against Canelo Alvarez. And you'll never gain the respect of the Mexican fan base trying to shit on Canelo Alvarez. Because Canelo Alvarez he's putting his country on his back. He's fighting for his country, and he has the respect of the Mexican fan base that you wish you had. Now coming out saying that you was going to take Canelo Alvarez's fight date, yeah, it didn't happen like that, and it'll never happen like that, because you cannot sell like Canelo Alvarez now. You had your day in the sun. Yeah, you did great things, Oscar De La Hoya, when it was your time. But you know what you couldn't do? You couldn't close the show. When you had big fights, you lost most of your big fights. You lost to Shane Mosley. You lost to Felix Trinidad, even though it was a close fight that could have went either way, right? But you had close fights that they gave you. Like you really lost to Ike Corte, but they gave you the decision. You know, you lost to Bernard Hopkins. You lost to Manny Pacquiao. You lost to Floyd Mayweather. So you had L's on your record, right? When you had big fights, you couldn't get it done. Now it's Canelo Alvarez's time, and he's showing up and he's showing out every time he gets in the ring. And you're sick and you're mad because you have jealousy in your bones, in your body, because Oscar De La Hoya, you couldn't get the job done on the business side with Canelo Alvarez. You only had one job to do because you only had one superstar in your stable left, and that was Canelo Alvarez, and you couldn't even do business right by him. So yeah, he had to leave you. And now all you doing is showing how bitter you are and how much jealousy you have in your soul, talking about Canelo Alvarez every time you get a chance. Yeah, but how did that turn out for you? He's fighting on Mexican Independence Day weekend. Not you, Oscar De La Hoya. Not you. So all of that tough talk that you was coming out talking about, you was going to take his day and show him how it's done, you couldn't take shit, right? He's going to have the support. He's going to be fighting on pay-per-view. And another thing is, it's a disgrace that you fight Vitor Belfort and they're actually letting you sanction this and let this fight go on your record. A guy that has never fought in the boxing ring, a guy that doesn't even have a stand-up game like that, right? A guy that's a UFC champion, he's a former UFC champion, but it shouldn't go on your record. You know, they shouldn't let this be a sanctioned bout that goes on your record, you know. And then you coming back after 13 years off, almost 50 years old, and you talking about calling out guys like Canelo and Charlo, you will get put to sleep. And the first time you step in the ring with I'm talking about a real fighter, you're going to get put to sleep. And you're going to wish that you never came back to boxing. What you should be doing is focusing on building Golden Boy Promotions, focusing on building young superstar talent that you have like Victor Ortiz, because you don't have too many fighters on Golden Boy. You lost all your fighters. You know, when Richard Schaefer left, you lost all the fighters because Richard Schaefer was the one that was doing all of the business. And Richard Schaefer was the one that was respected over there on Golden Boy. Richard Schaefer was getting it done, but you couldn't do business right by Richard Schaefer. You was too busy partying and putting cocaine up your nose, and you almost took the whole Golden Boy promotional company down with you. Now you want to focus on your boxing career. You had your time in the sun. You had your day. Now it's Canelo's time. So you're not doing yourself no justice by calling Canelo out and telling everybody that you was going to take his date, because it's not looking good for you, Oscar De La Hoya. Canelo Alvarez will be fighting on pay-per-view. And you'll probably be on you're going to be on Triller pay-per-view. But when September comes, you're going to see real fast who does the better numbers and who the fans and the Mexican fans are sticking by. They're going to ride with Canelo. Like I said, Oscar De La Hoya, nobody's checking for you anymore. Your time is over with. And if you do get Canelo pissed off enough to actually give you a fight and step in the ring with you, he's going to hurt you. And he might hurt you permanently and do something to you that you might not ever be able to come back from. I'm telling you right now, Oscar De La Hoya, you need to focus on building Golden Boy Promotional Company back up to where it was once before Richard Schaefer left. Anyway, Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez, they both will be back in the ring in September. And let's wait and see who does the bigger numbers. Let me know what you think about all of this. And y'all already know how I do. Hit the like button and sub to the channel if you're not already a sub. There you go, talking that boxing again. And I'm gone.